Hey guys, how are you? Andy Suku, founder and CEO of Y2K Credit Solutions. I have a great topic to talk to you guys about. But before I get into the topic, let me ask you a question. And this is for renters and landlords. Of course, landlords know what I'm talking about, but let me ask the renters this. Have you ever heard of the situation or the agreement when renting a property from someone, rent to own? The rent to own process? Basically, someone has a home that they may want to sell in about a year. And do you, as the renter, like the property, you move into it and you said, hey, I want to engage in a rent to own agreement. Whatever rent I paid towards the monthly rent can go deduct that from the purchase price when it's time to buy the house. Have you guys heard of that scenario? Well, it's been around. We got wind of it around 2018 when we had our first client that was in a rent-to-own situation out of Boca Raton, Florida. Now, since then, we've had about a good dozen and a half of cases where it did not work out in favor for the tenants. Holding in my hands is the current client that we have that situation with. And we did a post, I think last week, about that in our social media story, stating that be careful with rent to own because there's a lot of landlords that are scamming the buyers. And the buyers have no protection because they didn't sign the proper agreement or they didn't have certain stipulations put into the agreement when they got into the contract with the landlord slash owner on the rent to own agreement. Now here's a client. He engaged in a rent to own situation for a condo that he was renting in New York, Brooklyn. Rented the place for a year. There was a ledger created. Actually, rented the place for 2 years. There was a ledger created. Okay, here's the ledger. And the tenant was paying $3,500 a month. He rented the place, and as he was living in the place, he started getting comfortable, settling in. He started doing his own renovation to the property to his liking. Okay. Normally, you would think, okay, rent to own, which I can understand where the renters get this mindset from, that, hey, I'm going to buy this property, so let me start doing the work piece by piece as I get comfortable. Client remodels kitchens and so forth, bathrooms and whatnot. Now, the property went up in value a year later. The landlord said, hey, I don't want to engage in the rent to own agreement anymore. I want to come out of it. I am going to break the contract with you. You have to move out. The tenant says, well, I did all this work already. Who's going to compensate me for this? The landlord said, I did not tell you to do any work in a condo. You're rent to own. You don't own it yet. Interesting, right? So now the landlord got his property remodeled at the renter's cost out of pocket, and the property went up in value, and now the landlord can sell the property and make another $100,000 in profit. Now, a lot of clients get into rent to own because they can't afford to buy right now, but they know in a year, 2 years, this financial situation will change. So they'll engage in this rent to own agreement, but not having the proper protection. Here's a couple things you want to do if you're going to engage in a rent to own. In the lease, and I highly suggest you have an attorney review your lease. Don't do it on your own. Don't do it on your own. Spend a couple bucks if this is something you want to get involved with. Have a professional review your lease. You want to make sure that in that lease, it's stated that if you do any upgrades to the home, and if the landlord decides to break the agreement, you're entitled to the money that you put in as long you have your receipts. 2, you want to make sure the landlord is aware via email. You want to keep a paper trail. Anytime you're going to do some work, let him know that what work you're going to do, or let him or her know what work you're going to do. So there's always a communication line going. 3, you want to make sure that with the rent that comes with the rent, whatever rent is being paid, it is agreed upon and in writing that the rent will go towards the purchase price of the condo when it's time for you to purchase the condo. There's other things you want to have in there, but those are the 3 main things. All right. You have to protect yourself because a lot of these landlords, especially in up north, Connecticut, New Jersey, New York area, they're taking advantage of people that don't know the laws, but they're getting their place rented. They're getting a good amount of rent every month. The tenants are upgrading the properties and they're gaining the value. And they have the right to put you out and break the lease and it's not even illegal. It's just a rent agreement. You don't have a proper agreement in place. So it's very, very important that if you're going to go into the rent-to-own relationship with a landlord, which I don't suggest it, we don't advise any of our clients to do it. We tell them don't stay out of that situation because it gets messy. Within the 12.5 clients that we service, I think only 2 clients we saw it was a successful agreement. It actually executed the way it was agreed upon. Other than that, every other situation a client was in that we represented was a disaster. A disaster. And these clients end up losing a lot. All right? And even if you take it to court, a lot of tenants will not want to take it to court because to hire an attorney to represent you on a case like this will probably cost you an arm and a leg. And you know how attorneys are. They love to wind the clock down and get you another retainer, wind the clock down again until they get the situation resolved, which it can be more costly to you in the long run. So be very mindful of getting into a rental agreement situation. We have a client here that has one that's in it right now. Not only did he pay $52,000 in rent, the landlord is suing him for $53,000 in rent, or damages basically, for doing work to the apartment, and cleanup fees and so forth, additional fees in $2,500. So it can get really, really messy, and it's in a court magistrate, rights to try to make some sort of agreement between the two parties to settle this debt. Here's one thing I want to let you know. When you go to claim landlord-tenant court, a judge is never making the decision on these cases. Just so you guys know that. It's not a judge, it's a magistrate. Judges don't even waste their time. They tell you, the defendant and the plaintiff, to go down the hall, see the magistrate, and you guys iron out your issue. Even if you were at fault, somehow you're going to be coming out of your pocket to pay something out of pocket. So, court, you never really want to go into the court system. It's messy too. Like I said, in family court, credit court, debt court, when we go to court for our clients, you never actually see a judge. It's a magistrate that does the negotiation, and it could work or not work in your favor. All right. So if you have any questions about this topic, if you're involved with a rent-to-own situation, you need some help with it, give our office a call, 516-568-4541. We can assist you with that. And if you have any comments, drop it below. We'd love to hear your feedback on this topic. Talk to you soon. Have a good day.